Welcome everyone, and thank you for joining my session called Machine Learning and Ethics. My name is Fiona Milne, and you can find me on Twitter at FionaScottym. I'd like to begin by thanking AWS for organising this event, and thank you for having me back. I presented at a She Builds a couple of years ago and made some great friends and connections there. Events like these are also really important. Encouraging diversity in tech plays a big role in ethics, as I will talk to in this presentation. To start with, I'd like to share a little bit about me. I'm the head of AI and data at Whispir, which is a communications platform. Since joining in May 2020, I have built out a team who will help deliver intelligent messaging, which will hopefully lead to a more distraction-free world in a world of constant distractions. Building out a data science team from scratch has been a really great opportunity for me to start baking in ethical thinking from the get-go. In 2018, I founded the Melbourne chapter of the Women in Machine Learning and Data Science Meetup to encourage and support women and gender minorities in and interested in the industry, which now has over 1,300 members. Please feel free to join. Everyone is welcome. So why am I here talking about machine learning and ethics today? Well, it's not because I fear the robots taking over anytime soon. It's because using machine learning without thinking ethically can lead to perpetuating biases, resulting in people being treated unfairly. It's because the spread of disinformation is real and it's here and it's shaping the society we live in, for better or worse. And because technology and machine learning is playing a big role in this. And although I used a sci-fi character to highlight what I'm not concerned about currently, the story of Big Brother is becoming more and more realistic every year. As more and more companies collect more and more data about us, it is our duty as technologists to be concerned with our privacy and to ensure we do not end up with a surveillance state like that in the novel 1984. There's 5 books that I would really recommend reading if you haven't already. The first one's called Algorithms of Oppression, which highlights how search engines are racist. Weapons of Mass Destruction, which talks to how big data is increasing inequality and threatening our democracy. There's Invisible Women, which exposes data bias in a world designed for men. There's Automating Inequality, which highlights how high-tech tools profile, punish, and police the poor. And last but not least, there's Made by Humans, which examines humans as data and humans as the designers of systems that are meant to help us. I'd like to highlight here that all 5 books are written by women. That's not to say other genders aren't doing great stuff in this space, but there are certainly a lot of awesome women thinking about these problems. Someone else doing some really awesome research in this space is Laura Summers. Laura's got a really cool tool to help you start thinking more ethically, and it's called the Ethics Litmus test. So on Netflix, they recently made available a thought-provoking documentary called The Social Dilemma, which investigates how big tech can influence and manipulate us. More recently, I watched an awesome documentary called Coded Bias, which explores racial bias in facial recognition algorithms. Documentaries like these are very powerful because the more mainstream and demystified these issues become, the more accountable we all become to ensure we are doing the right thing. And if you'd like to deep dive even further into these issues, I would recommend the new course from the awesome Rachel Thomas at Fast AI called Applied Data Ethics. In this course, Rachel recommends the Markula Center for Applied Ethics, in particular their Ethics in Technology Practice page. I found the ethics toolkit really interesting and something I'm going to cover off in a lot more detail now. So there are seven tools in the toolkit. The first one is called ethical risk sweeping. It encourages you to institute regularly scheduled ethical risk sweeping exercises and practices to strengthen and sustain the team's ethical muscle for detecting these kinds of risks. Assume you miss some risks in the initial project development phase. Reward team members for spotting new ethical risks, especially ones that are subtle and or complex. Practice assessing ethical risks. Which risks are trivial? Which are urgent? Which are too remote to consider? Which are remote but too serious to ignore? Treat just as you would cybersecurity penetration testing. No vulnerabilities found is generally good news, but don't consider it a wasted effort. You keep doing it. The second tool might be familiar to a lot of people here. If you already work in technology, it's something called pre-mortems and post-mortems. This tool encourages you to ask these sort of questions before a project kickoff. How could this project fail for ethical reasons? What would be the most likely combined causes of our ethical failure or disaster? What blind spots would lead us into it? Why would we fail to act? Why and how would we choose the wrong action? What systems, processes, checks, fail-safes can we put in place to reduce failure risk? Some questions to ask after something's delivered. Why was this project an ethical failure? What combination or cascade of causes led to the ethical failure? What can we learn from this ethical failure that we didn't already know? What team dynamics or protocols could have prevented this ethical failure? And what must we change if we were to do better next time? Tool 3 is called expanding the ethical circle. And tool 3, so this is where you avoid harm from groupthink and the bubble mentality and the Friedman fallacy by explicit and deliberate measures designed to expand the ethical circle. That is to ensure that the legitimate moral interests of the full range of stakeholders, people directly or indirectly affected by our actions, have been taken into account. Expanding the ethical circle can be implemented in an explicit and regularized design exercise. Also, it can and should be implemented at higher levels of corporate leadership with respect to the broader impact of the company's activities on society. And this is where I can see myself adding the most value. There's two things that stand out for me for this tool. Two things that I'm quite passionate about. The first one is obviously encouraging gender diversity in the industry. The more different the types of people that are building out machine learning systems, the more likely we are to cause less harm. And then the second one is just around demystifying machine learning. So making it more accessible so that less people are scared of it, less people think that it's this black box that they don't understand, and they can understand the implications of what's being built out and then also become accountable themselves. Tool 4 is called code-based analysis. This is where you identify similar or paradigm cases that mirror the present case. You identify relevant parallels between differences among all the cases. You evaluate choices made and outcomes of the paradigm cases. And you use analogical reasoning to identify parallel risks, opportunities, solutions, and risk mitigation strategies. So really taking a look at what's already been done, and in particular, what's been done badly to learn from that. So tool 5 is called Remembering the Ethical Benefits of Creative Work. It encourages you to ask, Why are we doing this, and for what good ends? Will society, the world, our customers really be better off with this tech than without it? Or are we trying to generate inauthentic needs or manufactured desires simply to justify a new thing to sell? Has the ethical benefit of this technology remained at the center of our work and thinking? What are we willing to sacrifice to do this right? And on the flip side, Tool 6 encourages you to think about the terrible people who will want to abuse, steal, misinterpret, hack, destroy, or weaponize what we built. Who will use it with alarming stupidity and irrationality, one of my favorites. What rewards, incentives, openings has our design inadvertently created for those people? And how can we remove those rewards and incentives? And the last tool is called Closing the Loop, Ethical Feedback and Iteration. It asks you to remember that ethical design and engineering is never a finished task. Identify feedback channels that would deliver reliable data on ethical impact. Integrate the process with quality management and user support. Make it standard. Develop formal procedures and chains of responsibility for ethical iteration. So this is something that I ask myself quite often, and you might be asking yourself when it comes to machine learning and ethics, what can I do? So with so much to learn, I would really recommend, just if it's something that you're interested in, just learn, just keep learning. There's a lot of work that's already been done. There are a lot of resources. So yeah, just really educate yourself on the subject. So the reason why I'm here talking about machine learning and ethics is, like I said, the more people that are across it, the more accountable we can all become and the less harm we can potentially cause. So please help me spread the word. Last but not least, let's all support each other and watch each other grow. Thank you. Thanks for joining my session. I look forward to continuing the conversation at Q&A.